Have you ever heard the saying, doctors make for the worst patients? Well, make that about network admins and their home networks, and well, you got a new saying. My home network needed some serious TLC. It's not great. And that's what today's video is all about. This video is sponsored by NETGEAR and the Orbi Pro Wi-Fi 6 mini mesh router system. Now, prior to me installing the Orbi Pro Wi-Fi 6 mesh system, I was just using my ISP's provided router, which isn't great. I was getting about half the speed I was supposed to be getting, even though they're the ones that tell me what speed I should be getting. It was weird. It was very strange. On the best possible day, I would get about 400 megabits a second down and 20 megabits a second up. That's about half of what I was supposed to be getting. I have here and have completely installed the Orbi Pro Wi-Fi 6 mini system. This is one router and one satellite. So some of you may know I am a former network admin. It was my previous job, and I really liked the networking side of all that. And when I went to go set this up, I was really excited to put my network admin hat back on. But when I went to install this, I was actually slightly disappointed. Weird thing to say, I know. It was incredibly easy to install. I didn't have to have any special knowledge of the way networking works or any of my previous past life experience when I was in IT. So I was weirdly bummed, but also incredibly impressed by how easy it was to set up. I've set up a few mesh networks in the past, and they have not always been easy to do. The setup took maybe 20 minutes. The main router and the satellite paired incredibly quickly, and I was able to put them in place. They also have these really handy wall-mounted stands that they come with. Now, I didn't use that for the main router. I have a little entertainment system in my living room that I was just put that on there and I could plug everything into. But for my office here, I went ahead and put one of those on the wall right next to my desk. This way, I'm able to use the network ports on this. There are 4 network ports on the satellite that do 3 gigabits a second LAN connection. So I was able to plug both my Mac Mini server into this and my docking system when I plug in my iPad to my whole monitor, docks, external drives, and now I have a physical Ethernet connection. I talk a lot about using the SMB file transfer in the Files app to move large files around, mostly video files, between my iPad to my Mac Mini that acts as the file server. Now, doing this over this Orbi Pro Wi-Fi 6 mesh network system has really sped up that whole process. Before, it was incredibly slow. But yeah, now it's fast. It's like bonkers fast. Since this router system is built for both home and small businesses, there's options for like VLANs and multiple wireless networks. For those that aren't familiar, VLANs stand for Virtual Local Area Networks. So what this allows you to do is the ability to build multiple networks without the need of another router or firewall or any extra hardware. You can build multiple networks just using one Wi-Fi router. So for a small business, why you would want to do this is you'd want to build a production network for all your employees and people that work in that office to work from. But then you would also want a guest network because there's going to be people that come in, give presentations, and need to connect to your Wi-Fi. But you don't want them connecting to the same Wi-Fi network as your production network. This is really important for security. So for example, somebody comes into your office to give a presentation. They got a laptop and they need Wi-Fi access. Well, you don't want them on that same production network. You want them on a guest network for security reasons because you don't want them having access to things like your file server, HR documents, things like that. So with this, you build out a separate network using the same hardware, a whole separate network, and then you can use features like client isolation and network isolation. So the people that are on that guest network can't see anything on the production network, and they also can't see other devices that are on the guest network as well. This is just good practice for security in a small business. There's also built-in content filtering so you can filter out malicious websites. At my former job, we would get a lot of spam emails coming through. And an issue with that is that there's links in there. And sometimes people don't know when it's a spam email. A lot of spam emails can be very convincing that they're real, and they'll want to click on those links. So as we would get spam emails coming in that were malicious, I would get those links and I would block those using content filtering. So you can absolutely do this in this Wi-Fi system. It's really nice and works really well. So you just put in the URL and it blocks it. So that way, if somebody does accidentally click on that link, nothing malicious is going to happen. Since this is a business-grade Wi-Fi mesh router system, it has VPN support, meaning you can access your whole network when working from home or traveling. This is handy if you have something like a local file server you need to work off from. It also has support for WPA3 wireless security protocols, so you have the most secure wireless network available. Now, something where like these VLANs, multiple wireless networks, and content filtering might come in handy for a home is if you want to build out a kids network and an adult network. You could build a whole separate VLAN, a whole separate wireless network, and do content filtering for the kids, because you probably don't want your kids having access to the whole of the internet. Let's just be honest for a minute. So with this, you could strip all that stuff out that you don't want them having access to, but then you can have an adult network where you're not doing any filtering. Or if you are an adult and you do want some filtering, say for example, you kind of want to get off social media when you're home. You want to be present when you're home. You want to, be doing things that aren't sitting on your phone, reading Twitter, going on Instagram, Facebook, that stuff. You could block those websites so those aren't accessible to you when you're home. So on the main router itself, you have 3 network ports, and on the satellite, like I mentioned, you have 4. Now these are 3 gigabit a second LAN ports. Most computers only go up to 1 gigabit per second, so it's more than what you'll need. You can get like the Mac Mini, for example, there is an option to get 10 gigabit per second, so you would be able to fully take advantage of this 3 gigabit per second if you wanted. Now these 3 ports on the main router were more than enough for the hardware I needed. That's my PS5, Apple TV, and Philips Hue Hub. And like I mentioned, here in my office, I have my Mac Mini file server and I have my dock plugged into the satellite. But these routers also have Wi-Fi 6 built into them. This is the newest Wi-Fi spec, but it's also backwards compatible. So if you have older devices laying around, you don't have to upgrade those to make sure they have Wi-Fi 6. You can just use this router with older devices. Now, with one router and one satellite, that will cover about 4,000 square feet. That's a lot bigger than what my house is. So to put this to the test, and I've talked about this in the past, I have a park that's over here that I just go out to and work sometimes. Now, in the past, I've always had to use LTE because my router and my Wi-Fi just didn't reach out that far. But with this and 4,000 square feet, it reached just fine. I was able to sit out there and work off my Wi-Fi, so I wasn't cutting into my data cap. But if for some reason you need even more coverage, you can add up to 4 satellites, and each satellite gives you 2,000 square feet of coverage. Now, that all depends on how you're spacing it out and things like that, but that is quite a bit of space. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Okay, so all those tech specs are great, they're good to know, but what does this actually do for me, and what could this do for you? Well, let's talk about gaming first. So I mentioned I have my PS5 plugged into the router, so I can now download a PS5 game, and those can get pretty big, anywhere from 50 gigs to 100 gigs, and probably even more, but typically those are the games I play. I can download that in minutes now instead of hours. But also the remote play app for PlayStation works fantastic with this. So I've been replaying Spider-Man, but I've been playing it on my iPad to kind of push these routers and kind of see what it is. Now, what's cool about Spider-Man is there is an option in that setting, if you're playing it on PS5, that you get 60 frames per second and light ray tracing. And that's what I've left it on. And honestly, when I'm playing on my iPad, it looks like it's 60 frames per second. There's no real way to measure that, unfortunately. But I can definitely tell the difference between 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second. It's definitely still 60 frames per second, and the ray tracing stuff's there because it's just mirroring what's on the PlayStation. So there's no hardware issues, there's no lag, there's no frame rate drops or anything like that. It looks so good. So if you use that remote play app a lot, this would probably be a good Wi-Fi system for you. For streaming movies and TV shows, I always get 4K HDR when that content is available right off the bat. I don't ever see it downgrade to 1080p because it's buffering. When I was using my ISP's router and I was watching like a big movie or something like that, every once in a while it would like cut back down to 1080p and then like buffer back up to 4K, and that would just bug me. I'm a video guy. Like, I want 4K HDR all the time. And then the last use case, and I know not everyone is a YouTuber, but I think this is really important, especially for anyone that does any uploading to the internet. I had a video I just released not too long ago about more features you should know about on iOS 15. I uploaded that using my old router, and it took about 2 hours to upload. When I installed these new routers, and I didn't change anything on my ISP side, I didn't change any internet speeds. But once I installed these new routers, I cut that time in half. I was able to upload it in an hour. That's just so bonkers to me because I do so much uploading, and that has always been a massive bottleneck for me. The fact that I'm able to cut that time in half, I'd been great if I could have cut 25% off that time, but cut that time in half, 2 thumbs up from me. So I'm going to put some links in the description below to where you can check out the Orbi Pro Wi-Fi 6 mini system. I highly recommend you just go and check out those links. Just really see what's going on with these because I'm super impressed. Like I've talked about, I'm a former network admin, so I like to think I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this stuff. I'm very impressed. My thanks to NETGEAR for sponsoring this video. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.